What's going on, guys? It's Kyle here with Gnarly Knives, and today you're going to be taking a look at this cool knife here I picked up a little while ago. This is the Svord Mini Peasant. This knife here I know has been around for quite a long time. Quite a few people have talked about and reviewed this knife over the years. I finally just decided to pick one up because, I mean, they're very cheap. They usually run, I think, like 16 to 18 bucks. This one I picked up for, I think it was right around 18. So for something that you can pick up under 20 bucks, and actually still be a pretty functional, or not even just pretty, like just a very functional knife, I really think is a steal. This, like I said, I got it a little less than a week ago, so this is really just a first impressions. I did actually order a second one that should be here sometime next week. So eventually when I do a full review, probably in a few months' time, I'll see how both of them compare to each other. It's literally the exact same knife. I just got it with the white handle instead of this black. So when I do that full review, be able to see how well the two of them compare to each other, because this one actually is really nice. Because the reviews I had seen and people talk about them, I never really heard anything bad about them. Just that they're, pretty cheap and, kind of the get what you pay for. So I wasn't really sure what to expect. So when I finally got one, I was actually relatively impressed just overall with how well the, more or less fit and finish, which, I mean, isn't spectacular. But for a pretty budget knife, I think is pretty decent overall. But just the actual performance of it, I mean, actually using it, how well it came sharpened and stuff. I mean, yeah, there's, little things you could nitpick, but I feel like for the price is really not really much at all, if anything. So this knife here, I just weighed it. It weighs 2.5 ounces, which is actually really light given how large this knife is. I mean, obviously the tang adds probably like 1.5 inches onto the total length when it's closed. But overall, I mean, this is, I think, close to a 5-inch handle. Yeah, actually, it's about 5 1/8 inches from the both ends of the handle. But then when you add in, yeah, because that's about 1.75 inches. So with the tang, from the tang to the end of the handle, I mean, we're coming up on just over 6 3/4 inches. So, I mean, it's a long knife. But, being light, I guess, does help because the amount of room it takes in your pocket. It's not quite like having a brick, in the sense of weight, but you definitely notice it in the pocket, especially if you carry a lot of stuff in your pocket. If there's nothing in the pocket, I guess it's really not too bad. I mean, it's basically like almost having a cell phone in the pocket, just with the amount of space it takes up. But it does handle very well. I mean, the handle is very comfortable. One thing I was skeptical about was because that tang does pop up a little bit here. It's just part of because it's a friction lock, so it's similar to, well, I guess it's held in with friction. I mean, there's no lock. But it's very similar to the Higo Nakami knives, if anyone's familiar with those, because those are another really good little budget knife you can get. Most of those you can get for 25 bucks or less. I mean, these here, they have ones with different handle materials you can get for more. You can get them with wooden handles. I've seen them with copper handles. They have an even smaller version called the Micro. That one I believe you can also get with the same materials you get with these. This handle material, it's just a regular plastic. Don't know if it's, FRN, anything like that. Probably just a basic plastic. But, I mean, it's comfortable. It does have a little bit of texture, but it's not rough. But not worried about the knife, like, sliding around or anything. Because, too, I mean, if you notice, there's no guard on it. So, might not be good for someone, probably not a good knife for a young kid or something who you're just getting into knives. But I mean, as long as you're not, stabbing stuff with it, I mean, I wouldn't be worried at all. So that's basically the function here, like with the tang. So you can see there's that notch. So when the knife opens, it just slides in, and then you just kind of use your thumb and just press it in. Now, this was something I was a little skeptical about. How comfortable is that going to be? I mean, you definitely notice it. It's definitely there in your hand. I mean, I'm sure if you were using this for hours on end, yeah, it would get pretty uncomfortable. But where it kind of, I'll show you where in my hand it is. It's kind of where when your hand folds is, at least for my hand, where it is. So I actually don't even really make much contact with it, unless you're really gripping it tightly and bearing down on it. Don't really notice it too much. And it does hold in very well. I mean, you have to use a little bit of force. And the knife is held in with these brass pins. What I kind of like is it's nothing fancy. They're just they're flatheads. Now, being brass pins, yeah, I mean, be careful. Don't, try and wrench them on really tight or anything like that, because it's brass, it's soft, it could strip very easily. But I mean, if you're pretty delicate with it, shouldn't have anything to worry about. What is cool about that, though, I mean, even if it was, the Torx or anything like that, but what is nice about it is I like that you can adjust how tight you want the blade and the handle to be. So mine, it came fairly tight. I just gave it a little bit extra, and it hasn't loosened at all. I didn't like take it out and throw Loctite or anything in it. Just kind of seeing how it does as is. But it's definitely very well made. I mean, even the way that it's ground. I mean, some things are uneven in the sense, like on this side, you can see the unground portion, how it kind of just like flows up the blade up to about here. But then on this side, it's ground up to here and then a little bit around where it says Svord in New Zealand. That's where it's made, is New Zealand. They do make a lot of other knives. I actually, it was funny. I thought they pretty much just made these and variants of it. So they do have the micro, which is the smaller version of this, probably at least half the size based on how it looks in pictures. They also have so this is the mini, which is funny because it's not mini. It's definitely, this is a large knife. But they have the large version, and that one has, I think it's like an 8-inch blade, an 8.5-inch blade. So, I mean, basically, the overall length of this is about how long just the blade is. So it's probably about this long altogether. That, I think it's about 60, 70 bucks. So I don't know if I'll be picking one of those up anytime soon, but they also do make some kitchen knives. They make a Santoku, which is like, I think like 45, 50 bucks. They make like a hunting blade. They make some cool stuff. So, I mean, you're not just limited to this. So if you pick one of these up and really like it, they do have other stuff that they offer. So I did the handle. I don't think I discussed the blade length, because it's around 3.5. Oh, actually, yeah, about 3.25 inches on the blade length. So that's pretty good. That's about the size I like. I generally prefer knives like over 3 inches, usually 3.5 to, yeah, about 3.5. I notice with me is like the sweet spot. But the steel seems to be holding up pretty well. I mean, I haven't done anything super crazy with it, but it came shaving sharp out of the box when I got it. See if it's still shaven. No, it's not quite shaven anymore now. I'm pulling a couple hairs out. But I've broken down a bunch of cardboard with it, opened up some packaging, a few zip ties, stuff like that. It's held up pretty well. The grind on it is okay. I mean, it's not the most even on both sides, but I mean, it's definitely done well enough. With the good sharpening, could definitely clean that up a bit. I mean, I don't know if you'll be able to really tell here. Kind of see if it'll focus. The tip isn't the most even. Needs a little bit more on this side. Nothing super crazy. I mean, I feel like when they make these, they probably pump them out really quick. And if that is the case, I mean, I'm pretty happy overall. There's really nothing with it that can't be cleaned up with, a few minutes on the stone. Not sure what the steel is. I believe it is called 15 and 20, or that might be a steel they use on one of their other knives. Because I didn't see it on these, but it was, I think, one of the, either the Santoku or one of the other knives that they make. I think it was one of those where it mentioned that steel. So that could be the steel, or it could just be, a lot of companies use more than one steel. The steel seems pretty decent. I mean, I would probably liken it to a fairly basic carbon steel. Until I get more use with it and sharpen, I'll be able to get a better of idea. Oh, it's like 1095 or, whatever. I don't, have anything really to compare it to just yet. Until I get a little more use with it. But I mean, it seems overall to hold up well. The only thing I really noticed was when I got it, it did definitely need a good stropping. Like I said, it was sharp, but it still had some burr on it from when they grind out the edge, so that just needed a little cleanup. But it was shaving sharp beforehand. I mean, then of course once I stropped it, it was definitely shaving hair. But I just did that more just to kind of clean the burr up a little bit. This, it fits the hand very well. It does take up the pocket quite a bit. But I guess one thing is, when it is in the pocket, especially if you put it in your pocket, tip down, you can just kind of use this and pull it out. I mean, you do have this little hole that's drilled in. I mean, I'm sure if you really wanted to, you could throw some cord in there. I mean, it's definitely too thin for paracord, but even when it's closed, about half of it is taken up inside the handle. So if you did put a cord on it, maybe take another knife and you could probably notch out a little bit where it goes in, because then you probably won't be able to close it if something's tied in there unless it's very thin. So I guess that would be up to you. I mean, lanyards aren't really quite my thing. I mean, I have a few on some fixed blades, but you definitely have that option if that is something that you want. Or, I mean, I suppose if you were really inclined, if you were careful, you could probably drill this out maybe a size up, because this is probably, it looks like it's about 1/8 of an inch, maybe 5/32 already. So you could probably bump it up a little bit. I wouldn't go too much more than this, just because then, you have the chance of just blowing out a side or whatever. One thing I actually had thought about doing, I don't know if I will or not, but I really don't think it needs to protrude from here. I mean, if it gets to the point where I find it too uncomfortable, I might take a file and just file it down to where it's pretty much flush, because I don't use this to close it. I mean, it's not really practical. Yeah, you can do it. I just don't really see the need for it. So, I mean, because I just close it like I would any slip joint. That's just what I do. So that might be something I might end up doing. Or maybe when I get the other one, maybe I'll do it to one of them, not the other. And it might just be another talking point. Because, yeah, I feel like, because a couple minutes with the file, just bring it right down. I'd probably just take like a marker or something and just like draw, or yeah, like mark on it where it's flush, or where it would be flush. But I mean, the blade thickness, it's definitely less than 1/8 of an inch, but it is ground pretty well. It looks almost convex-ish. A couple of reviews I had, people said that theirs were convex, so maybe that could just be how the people grind it, just how it goes. This one, it's like kind of like half convex. So I mean, whenever I do sharpen it, I'll probably just make it. I'll decide then. I might just embrace it and go and just make it a convex blade, or just say screw it and then just make it a standard like a V edge. But it's nice to use. I do like that there's the, you have that decent, or I'd say decent, it's a generous sharpening choil. Don't know if that's just by design or just, how they make it. I mean, it's a round and that's flat. So, I mean, just when it's open, it just leaves a gap. Don't know if that's how it is. But really cool knife. You know, I could definitely see myself getting more. Like I said, I mean, they have tons and tons of colors. They come in different sizes, and the company does make other knives. I would definitely like to check out more, especially after I get that other one. Um, I don't know, because that Santoku does look pretty cool. And I know I'm not the biggest with using kitchen knives. I usually just use my regular knives. Um, my one, like, true kitchen knife that I have, or I don't even know if it's even really a kitchen knife. I mean, but I have one of those Jeff White English trade knives. Um, and that's pretty much like when I'm like, yeah, all right, I want to use like a longer blade or something that isn't a pocket knife. That's pretty much what I'll grab. So maybe if I got the Santoku, especially for the price, I mean, it's like 45, $50, something like that. Um, you know, and I do because I love carbon steel, so I mean, it would kind of fit in well. Um, maybe I'll pick one of those up at some point. Um, but yeah, I feel like getting to the point where I'm just starting to repeat myself. But there's a really nice knife. I think for the price, it's worth checking out. You know, because it's something you'll definitely find use for it. I mean, I don't know if it's something that I would carry all the time, but I mean, even if it's something you take it and you throw it in a like a toolbox or something, or something you use in your garage, shed, whatever. I mean, definitely can be used as a beater knife. I mean, it's pretty robust. I mean, like I said, I know it's plastic handle. There's no liners in it. It's just the plastic, but I don't know. I mean, I don't really pry things with knives. I mean, you know, I try not to. I'm not saying I never do. I mean, this would be something maybe, yeah, because it's literally just the plastic handle and stuff. Yeah, maybe it would be less likely something I would pry with if I had to. But I really enjoy this knife. I think it's worth checking out. You know, I don't think you can really go wrong. You know, especially if, you know, if you get it and it's not perfect, if you know, kind of good with your hands and like, or like doing stuff with your hands, you know, it's something you can probably spend an hour with it. You know, I mean, there were a couple spots um, where like the gaps are between the two pieces of handle where it was a little sharp. So, you know, a little sandpaper, stuff like that. I mean, if you spend an hour with it, you know, maybe throw a fresh edge on it, you can clean up the bevels, you know, mess around with the pivot screw, get it to the tightness that you want. Um, I mean, one thing is kind of nice. I mean, it's almost like a front flipper. You know, I mean, you can definitely do it open and close one hand. I mean, opening one hand is definitely easier, but you can close it one-handed. You just kind of have to do the reverse. Once you get it started, then you can kind of flip it. But yeah, I mean, it's a nice knife. I'm definitely enjoying it. I'm kind of finding things to use it for. I haven't used it with any cooking stuff yet, chopping up anything, but I feel like it would do well. I mean, it's a flat grind, you know, so you definitely, you know, you find most kitchen knives in. But I hope you guys got something out of it. Hope you liked the video. Please remember to comment, subscribe, share it if you would. And remember to keep carving and stay sharp. Peace.